So we're here to talk about your favorite person in the world, the fictional character Jessica Chastain, wife of fictional character Oscar Isaac. I know that you just found her really sort of like admirable, just like a really good role model for a modern professional woman, and you just found her kind of inspiring all around. I thought is that an accurate representation of your experience of the movie?
Joyless and beautiful. That's how I found her. Joyless and beautiful with those perfect triangle nails. She had those really triangle talons and those perfect work work clothes. Yeah, I know. I hated her. She was she was terrible. Well, it was one of those where I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell if I was hating Jessica Chastain's acting or Jessica Chastain or the character she was playing. I couldn't tell. I just really didn't like. I don't like when people behave badly and then take themselves really serious. I'm not articulating that well. Like,
You like antagonistic clowns. You like for them to be, you like your villains to be
well,
extra
if you're gonna
silly.
if you're gonna do whatever you're gonna do, you could at least have a sense of humor. I mean, I just think like I think that's what I can't tell. Does Jessica Chastain have no sense of humor, or did the character she was playing merely have no that I'm not sure. There was no sense of humor in sight. Oscar Isaacs, you could tell he had a little tiny sense of humor that was not given much surface area, but you
Yeah.
could tell he had one.
Yeah, it's funny. I hadn't thought about that. They both tend to get really broody, serious roles, but
Hmm.
yeah, he probably is a little bit funnier.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's just being sort of a very severely beautiful looking leading lady. It probably is a little bit more of a brittle role. Like it's a little harder to be funny with that line of business than if you're just like a nice looking actor man.
Well, I was thinking about that because I was thinking like, do I hate her because she's beautiful? No, but I think that there's some very funny, beautiful actors. I mean, I think about I don't know. I'm not coming up like Reese Witherspoon is a beautiful woman, and she's often in a comedic role, and
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I do love all the brunette Catherines. So if your name is Catherine, and
Kevin Keener, yeah.
Catherine Keener, Catherine Hahn, Catherine Hepburn, is Catherine Deneuve a
Catherine
brunette?
Zeta-Jones, is she not? She's not on your list.
Oh, I didn't think of. Well, you're right. I didn't think of her. Mainly Catherine Hahn and Catherine Keener, but I don't know what it is. You're right. Brittle is the word. It is. It's this chilly brittle. It is a little Nicole Kidmanish. It's like a similar. It's like this sort of ice
Yeah.
princess sort of position. And again, maybe this was the role as it was written, but I found her very unappealing. If I were Oscar Isaac's character, I just couldn't have run away fast enough. I just would have. And then, but except for the problem was, it did feel a little bit like when you're watching a play and you can tell the actors are enjoying the acting far more than the viewers are enjoying the viewing. You could tell that they were really they were really into it. They were like, we're gonna have some more good, stormy arguments, and I'm going to walk across the stage and pour myself. I don't know.
Yeah, there
It
there are
felt very
definitely going to
actorly.
be like there are definitely going to be a lot of excerpts from this script used in acting classes for
Yeah.
decades to come.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we're serious and we're having
Yeah.
complicated emotions. And no, run away, Oscar Isaac. Run, Oscar Isaac's character, excuse me. I don't know. Like people have done these things, people have behaved badly, people have done this for time immemorial. You don't have to be so serious about it. It's like they were the first people to ever have an affair, and like there was no nothing, there was no joy or levity. I didn't even understand why they were together in the first place. They barely, I mean, they had some torrid, they had some, I guess they did have some torrid scenes.
I think your favorite parts were just the sexy parts. It was just like all the naked sex.
Well, it was admittedly a relief from the,
I'm Matthew Buckley Smith, and you're listening to SLEERICKETS. Thank you to all of you for listening, and thank you especially to those of you who've had a chance to go to Apple Podcasts or wherever else you're listening. Leave a rating, leave a review, subscribe if you have not yet, and if nothing else, maybe sometime this week recommend the show to someone you think might like it. I have to apologize for this past week's episode, which got weirdly delayed. I wasn't sure exactly why. It is now available on iTunes and wherever else as usual, but in the end it appears that the culprit, the reason that it didn't get the sabot that clogged up the whole system was the umlaut in Louise Gluck's name. So I will, I may do less formatting on my show notes in the future in order to avoid that kind of snafu. At any rate, sorry for that. With any luck, this one will go out on time. This week, I am speaking about Scenes from a Marriage, the new HBO miniseries, along with the original Ingmar Bergman version a little bit. I'm going to be speaking about all of that with my wife, Joanna Pearson, a short story writer, poet, young adult novelist. She's the author of a number of books. Most recently, Now You Know It All, from the University of Pittsburgh Press. It's the winner of the Drew Hines Prize, and it's a great collection of stories. I will put links to that and all of the rest of her stuff in the show notes. We had a pretty fun conversation. It is a little strange. It's a little strange doing one of these on here with someone I speak to so frequently, but she certainly punctures some of my hot air, I guess. So let's go to that right now.
it really did try my patience. I'll say that. It tried my patience.
Yeah. So we should probably provide at least a smidgen of context. So we watched the new HBO adaptation of Scenes from a Marriage. It's a new miniseries. They released it in 5 parts. The original Scenes from a Marriage was a 1973 Swedish TV miniseries, written and directed by Ingmar Bergman, legendary Swedish director. So the original series was 6 parts. Each one was about an hour long. And then he later released
5 parts too many, in my opinion. Go on. Go.
Was the new one 5 parts too many? Or was the old?
The new one was umpteen. I don't know how many parts it was because it was
5. The new one was 5 parts and the old one was 6 parts.
Well,
so 5 parts too many could mean one of 2 things.
There were too many parts, too many. The thing that I'll say is that it also should have been called Scene, singular, Scene from a Marriage, being, we argue, like the scene is that like they're gonna have an argument. They're gonna dissect our relationship.
Yeah, I mean, also Scene from Marriage in that the marriage ends halfway through the second scene. More or less effectively. So Bergman took his 6-part original and and cut it down, adapted it into a 2.5 hour movie, or almost 3 hour movie that was released in theaters. It starred Liv Ullmann and Erland Josephson, along with in a small but memorable part, Bibi Anderson, who was also an actress he used many, many times. Liv Ullmann is still alive. She's a great actress. One of the great actresses of the actors of the 20th century. She was married to Bergman for a good while, and my understanding is that the movie was, or the series was, based on their marriage. Oh, you know what? I don't know if they were ever properly married, but they were together for a long time, and they worked together for much, much longer. So you did not see the original.
No.
The 6-part miniseries, the original 6-part miniseries is not streaming anywhere, and I didn't feel like figuring out how to watch that. I watched separately from you, but concurrent with our watching the HBO version. I watched the 2 or 3 hour movie version of the original, and boy, it's maybe harder to watch than the new one. Like, one of the things, so the loosely speaking, the plot of the original, it's not really much of a plot, but it's broken into 6 scenes. Marianne and Johann, Marianne and Johann are this married couple. They're both professionals. She's a lawyer. He's an academic. They have 2 daughters, and they're happy and successful, and they're being interviewed by some magazine writer about their happy, successful marriage. In the second episode of the original, which was the one that was not adapted in the new one, is maybe the most interesting of them. That's the one that feels most like scenes from a marriage, where they are going about their professional lives, their personal lives, and there's a real feeling sort of struggling inside of a marriage, where he feels sort of unfulfilled as like he hasn't reached his potential, and she feels a little bit passionless. But then by the 3rd section, which in the original is called Paula, we learn that Johann is leaving Marianne. He's leaving her for a much, much, much younger. In the original, she's 23. He's leaving her for. And by the way, so it's Erland Josephson and Liv Ullmann play the married couple in the original. Liv Ullmann is a terrific looking 35, and Erland Josephson is a okay looking 50. So and he's sort of like a middling professor, and not, I would say, like, not especially charming. He's great in Andrei Tarkovsky's last movie, The Sacrifice, which is made some years later. He's sort of stiff here. Liv Ullmann is amazing. She's also very warm. She and Jessica Chastain look a lot alike at these points in their lives. Like, in the 2 series, they actually do quite resemble each other. But Liv Ullmann is all radiance and warmth. She also is a pretty innocent victim throughout. Like, they flipped
the role of the baddie.
So they flip. Yeah, it's in the new one, it's the wife who has the affair. In the original, the Johann not only says, "Well, I'm leaving for 7 or 8 months to go live with my mistress, and maybe never coming back," but also says, like, not only am I not interested in keeping in contact with our daughters while I'm away, but I don't want to say goodbye to them. I'm glad, like, I want to leave now, and I'm going to let you worry about that. He almost entirely abandons his daughter. He does sort of end up paying some child support, but he's totally callous about his daughter's totally callous to her. Later on, they had this sort of on again, off again tension where they keep sort of falling back into old patterns and having sex with each other. Then they sort of eventually officially get divorced, and he is truly monstrous to her. Like, in the signing the divorce papers scene later on, he slaps her, bloodies her nose, knocks her to the ground, and ends up kicking her again and again at one point. I mean, he's like really horrifically brutal to her, totally self-absorbed, really has no, I mean, he kind of, there's little brief moments of humility and tenderness right toward the end, but basically she is this glowing ball of like Swedish redheaded warmth and beauty, and he's a sort of a crusty, bearded bitter, brutal failure. So it's really like horrible. And so in this version, you want to give a brief account of.
So in this version, Jessica Chastain is sort of the initiator of the marriage's dissolution. She's the one who's having an affair. She's the one who wants to leave. She's the one who is less present as a parent to the child. Yeah, she is the less sympathetic person, I would say, by far. And
But compared, I mean, at least I would say, like, compared to the Johann in the original, she's, she when she goes to leave to be with her what's a male mistress, not a master, a mistress,
lover, her lover,
her lover,
yeah.
Polly. Terrible name, Polly. She like makes arrangements to. She not only like says goodbye to their daughter in person, but she also like makes arrangements to come see her every other weekend, and she remains pretty close. Like, she's unsympathetic, but she's also much more. There's much more gentleness and nuance to her. I don't know.
I can't say, because I haven't seen the original, and I can't say I have the desire to, but so I mean, sure, she may be more sympathetic than it sounds like the husband in the original was horrible. I still felt that there were, and again, this is where, is this how the character was written? Is this her acting? There was something very, even in her moments of, oh, the daughter, what, it felt to me like she was caught up in her own drama. Like she, the character, was performing a show for herself, where everything was intensified. She was living in her own movie as a person. And I mean, again, technically, when you're watching any actor, they are a character performing in a movie, but I don't always get the sense that the character feels, I don't know, more natural to me, more believable. And in this, it was like she seemed very caught up in the drama that she was creating, and even her gestures toward the child seemed very performative and kind of hollow to me. And again, is that her acting? Is that this role? I don't know, but I found it very, in addition to being sort of tedious and wearying, I found it annoying.
Yeah, I also, and I'll say, like, she, once someone crosses you, and like once a character earns your scorn, it's hard. It's a hard road back. But something I wonder about, because of the original, like there's a weird sort of secondary story to all of this, which is that, assuming that this bears some resemblance to Bergman's marriage or relationship to Ullman, the sleeping factor is that he was an immortal genius, and that they were working together, making great movies for many, many years together. Whereas in the original, he's a professor and she's a lawyer, and they don't really have much to do with each other after they're married. And so her enduring attraction to him and his sort of hold over her feels a little more difficult to account for.
You mean in the new one?
In the old one, it feels like, what is it that, why is he such a Svengali? Like, what, you can see, like, Liv Ullmann and Ingmar Bergman were like making plays every winter and movies every summer in Malmo for years and years and years. And these were, like, even at the time, acknowledged as it was like truly great works of art. And so that's a really powerful bond and relationship. And even then, after they break up or they have whatever, friction, there continues to be a real magnetic power there. And it doesn't, like, maybe lots of divorced couples go secretly have passionate affairs with each other after the fact, but it felt a little bit like that was the part of the story that got that maybe like he wasn't accounting for properly. Like maybe he was like, oh well, all shithead ex-husbands have a magical hold over their wives, over their ex-wives,
Yeah.
in a way that felt like it would just make more sense if it was like, oh no, this is just Bergman and this is Liv Ullmann. And so then that gets transposed, as you said, to the new one where Jessica Chastain, she's Mira and Oscar Isaac is Jonathan, but I guess we can just call them by their actor names. She is now the Johann, but what that ends up meaning is that she's also now the Ingmar Bergman. And part of what I wondered about with her character, because there is like an aspect of Johann's character that is sort of interesting, particularly given that it's Bergman writing this, is that he is, they talk about how he was really, when they were young, he was really promising. Like he was the smartest of their group, and everybody expected great things from him. And he's ended up having a kind of a middling career and sort of hasn't really done much remarkable. And so you see part of the vanity that leads him to go off with this 23-year-old, which again is this kind of the shadow version of Bergman's extraordinary success in his own life and brilliance in his own life. But then I wonder if even in our super liberated enlightened age, I wonder if like all of the aspects of male ambition and vanity in that sense totally translate to a female character.
It's like I don't know that I don't think it's particularly gendered necessarily, but I think you're talking about a kind of charisma. I mean, the example I was thinking of is what people would say about Bill Clinton and about the effect he had if you were in the room with him, and how you would just there was something that couldn't be taught, and this kind of charm and I believe that based on what I've heard, and I've seen that, and I've even seen that with actors. I think there are actors who are on the screen, they just have they create such interest, they have such magnetism. They can be beautiful people, they don't have to be beautiful people, but they just have this interest and this electricity and this charge. And I think that maybe is in Bergman had it, and that's what it was. And maybe that's also part of this, is like Jessica Chastain is a beautiful woman and probably a very good actor in certain ways, but to me, she lacks whatever that quality is to make her an object of obsession and a sort of charismatic, obsessional. To me, it's like, well, why wouldn't you just say, well, she was really beautiful, but she sucked. So my heart is hurting, but I will move on. I disbelieve I guess I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I disbelieve her as that, but I don't, again, I think we're talking about a kind of charge and charisma that I certainly don't think it's because she's a woman. That's
right. Yeah. You're saying like you wouldn't want to do an adaptation of the Bill Clinton story where Bill Clinton was played by Hillary Clinton. You don't think she has all his charisma?
Well, Hillary Clinton's not an actor, first of all.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's fair. The people who know her, and she has her many strengths, but I think no one is, comparatively speaking, no one talks about how she's got that kind of same charisma.
So I was curious. I just looking up the American miniseries. This was adapted by Haggai Levy and Amy Herzog. I think it's mostly Haggai Levy. It's his baby, but then Amy Herzog gets some credit as a writer. She's a playwright and he's a writer.
Of course she's a playwright. That's got to be the answer.
Yeah, I think the only play of hers I've read was 4,000 Miles, which I thought was fine.
You would have to be a playwright though, because you're in love with two people in a room talking intensely.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is a play. It's because with the exception of like almost all of the series takes place in a contained space. Quickly though, I was going to say, just as an odd piece of trivia that I wonder about. So Jessica Chastain was not the original Mira for this version. It was when they were first setting it all up. I believe the first actor to sign on was Michelle Williams. Who's a
Oh, so they
very
were going,
different.
but still they were going for a type. They were going for a serious actor.
Right, they weren't going for, though actually, like I was gonna say, they weren't going for like Kristen Wiig, but they're like, in a way, like she could have been great. And
She would have
yeah,
been perfect.
well,
She would have
she
been
certainly is
perfect.
charismatic, and would have brought some levity
Yeah.
to it. She is, by the way,
Yeah.
she is great in, I think it's called Welcome to Me, which is like a serious dark movie, but she's very like
I
funny
feel
and
like we
weird.
watched that together.
Yeah, I think I know I saw it. I couldn't tell. I couldn't remember if it was too boring for you to watch, but I
No, I
thought she
think
was
we
great in
watched
that.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's able to make heavy material. Like, yeah, I mean, Michelle Williams, I think, is a great actress, and is, I think, probably warmer than Jessica Chastain, but also doesn't feel like she like a natural like towering source of like intellectual and emotional gravity. Like it's hard to see her being a commanding figure.
Yeah, I would be curious to, well, I wouldn't really be curious to watch this movie ever again, but it would have been different with Michelle Williams. Why do I have a instinctive degree of fun? Is it because she was in Dawson's Creek? I feel like she was leavened by her her early days in Dawson's Creek. I think I think I like her for that. I think I like that she is a serious actor, but she has this kind of teen drama past. I also like that there's something a little more human about her, where I mean, she's clearly, obviously, she creates interest. She's an attractive person, but she doesn't feel quite so at a remove as some of the very, very, I only can come up with this word chilly, the sort of chilly actors that I'm thinking of, chilly leading ladies.
Yeah. Like it's the
Maybe I would
difference
have.
between like Wendy and Lucy and Tree of Life, which were like
Yeah,
both of them.
exactly.
Those were
Exactly.
their respective like big art house breakout.
Yeah.
Though
And
Saturday, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
she could tell a joke. No, I also believe it's like there's something about Michelle Williams. I believe in her laughing at a moment. And I just like, I don't, has Jessica Chastain ever laughed on film in life? I
She
don't
was in The
know.
Help. She was like a very bubbly, silly role in The Help, but she was also sort of a Barbie in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like there's like The Help, there's Tree of Life, there's the Zero Dark 30.
Oh, I
She's the
like
lead in
Zero
Zero
Dark.
Dark 30. She's the lead in that.
Oh,
I mean,
I
which is
must have
not a
just
funny
blanked that
role.
out. Yeah.
It's not a playful role. I mean, I think she's a
Yeah.
quite a good actress. I also think like this is a brutal role. I mean, it's hard to,
It's a real
it's
stinker.
not a
It's
sympathetic
a real
role.
stinker. No, no,
The
no. And it went on way too long. That was the other thing. Way too long.
well, part of what I felt lacking in both, I mean, in both the original and the adaptations, and I'll say, like, I don't know that they needed to make an adaptation, but any comparisons that say, well, the original was so great and this is a lesser thing, like, I don't know that this is worse than the original. I think this in some ways it may be better than the original. Certainly the two actors are better matched than Liv Ullmann and Erland Josephson. uh it's, I mean, it is for the most part pretty well written. There's a lot more nuance to the two roles, the husband and wife. The set is great. There is this weird device they use that I never figured out what it was doing, where they start the first four episodes, they start with this meta scene where you see in kind of raw
Mm,
video footage the actors and the crew setting up the shot, and then suddenly they switch over to
I didn't
the,
understand what that framing did for it either. It was almost like we know we filmed this during COVID times and we were wearing masks. We know these are actors, and we're like, I did
yeah.
not. I don't know what that really brought to the. And then I thought, maybe is there going to be something in the end where this breaking the fifth, like, why are you doing? I think they just did it because they felt like it, which is fine, but I mean, not really. It's not really
Yeah,
fine. You should have a good reason, probably.
I thought it did two things. I'm not sure either was really the goal exactly. So three things. Like one is that you see that they are very good at what they do. Like just seeing the before and after the action. But it made me really appreciative of the crew and set designers, because they do all these exterior shots of this sort of very pretty suburban house. But of course, when you're shooting in a house, it's not really a real house. It's a set, and it's a sort of a big house construct that has all these moving parts. You can shift the walls around, and like you can see snow and sort of a fake backdrop through the window, and it is just sort of physically a really beautiful piece of design to make this house feel very real on the inside. And then the other thing it did is that it allowed for the very end, which was after the very final scene, when the director calls out cut, you see the two actors get up out of bed, get dressed, and then they sort of hold hands and walk to their dressing rooms, and they kiss each other and then go into their respective rooms. And it is as you said, like, it was nice to see, because they seem genuinely happy and like nice to each other. They seem like, oh, these are like two nice, warm human beings. And to me, it felt a little bit like at the end of children's plays, there's often a sort of an important moment, like the curtain call serves the function of like the actors saying, goodbye to the audience, but it also serves this important function of like showing the kids that nobody's really hurt. Like, see, they're all okay. And they're all really friends. They're no real bad guys. And it felt a little bit like that. Like, oh no, they're really okay. This is just Jessica Chastain and Oscar Isaac, and they're nice and they like each other.
I mean, but I guess the question is, were either of those things really necessary? I mean, is not to dismiss all the work of set designers and crew and all of that, but like, isn't the whole point of the whole cinema tradition that they create a beautiful, it's beautiful artifice? Like we aren't supposed to have any awareness of all the labor and we're not really supposed to have an appreciation for that, and we aren't supposed to be reminded of that. And the same with the actors. If we're immersed in it, we don't need the children's play reminder of, well, but they aren't really mad at each other. I mean, I agree with you. It was sort of a nice moment and something of a relief after all it was just like watching a really tense argument for, it was nice to be like, oh, look at them. They're happy. They made a movie, but so what? I mean, I guess I don't, yeah, your points are well made, but why do that? The whole thing is to create a beautiful, immersive experience where you aren't brought out of it in that way.
Right. Well, Brecht would wag a finger at you, but
that's why no one likes Brecht.
Well, I think some people like Brecht. He was very successful. Yeah.
I mean, I just said that.
Yeah.
That. But,
but I think what's very true about him is that he had all these really smart ideas about breaking the fourth wall, about exposing the machinery of the theater, about, I want them to see the lights, I want them to see that the actors are actors, I want them to understand that they're watching a play and not get, he wanted to break the illusion. He wanted to have a kind of an intellectual theater where people were watching with a kind of a remove and smoking cigars in the audience and thinking thoughts rather than just being caught up in the emotions. But what the problem is that he was also a good writer. And so what you see very quickly is that it is weird and sort of off-putting to say like, oh, well, that's Oscar Isaac talking to the director about a scene and how he wants to play it. And then moments later, there's the action happening. But because they are good movie makers and because they're good actors and good directors, you immediately get immersed in it anyway. And that's the same thing that happens with Brecht. Like what we find is that the power.
Well, why do that? Why do that? I truly don't think you could argue it really adds anything. It's not. I don't understand why. Like to me, there has to be a real. Is it? And by the way, I realized maybe I've been saying this wrong. Is it the fourth wall or the fifth wall that one is breaking when one
Well,
breaks the wall?
what are you describing? It's five walls.
I don't know, but I think I've been saying the fifth wall or the sixth wall.
There's the
I'm many
fifth
walls
column
out.
and the fourth estate, and
The fourth, is
or
it the fourth wall that,
well,
or the
if you're
fifth
in a
wall?
room with four walls, then the idea of like the proscenium, like well-made play presentation, is that one of those walls is invisible and the audience is sitting on the other side of it.
I've been breaking the fifth wall in all of my
Like the ceiling or the
misusings.
floor or the,
No, I don't know. I thought it was
like
just,
the
I'm
like the
pretty, I think I've just been saying that wrong for a while, but anyways,
uh yeah,
that's
there's like
neither here
it's
nor
sort of
there.
there's a interesting metaphysical suggestion there. Yeah, no, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I think it's why like Brecht ends up introducing a style more than a real new theory of theater, because we love the spell. We love being caught up in things. And even
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean, I do think of you never saw the movie Dogville, did you?
I can't remember. I might have.
It's the one that all takes place on a big naked soundstage where the
Oh, I don't think so.
yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah,
I tend to think you're right that I don't know really if it really adds anything, except it's just sort of like a technical level. It's sort of cool to see, but I don't think it does. I don't think it adds anything to the storytelling at all.
no, I don't think so. I also feel like stuff like that, it feels like something that, I feel like it's a thing that, not that I make films or plays, but it feels like it would be a thing that I would try and do when I was young because I was failing technically to achieve the thing I was trying to do. And so then I would make an excuse to myself and say, "Oh, well, I'm just going to break the fifth wall, and the reader will see what I'm doing."
Fifth wall.
Or the fourth wall, as the case may be. I'm just going to break the fourth or fifth wall, and they'll sort of like, oh, and it would just be a way of me justifying to myself a failure in sort of sustaining the illusion. So I feel like a lot of times what it amounts to is a justification for a failure to achieve the spell. That's my
Right.
secret
This
opinion.
is like
Some
you're
people do it.
like you consistently have like a really high tolerance and appreciation for the highly experimental and avant-garde and in literature and the arts and large.
Well, I do think it's a good thing to hide behind. I think that it's like if you, I don't know, if you have no singing voice, well, great, you just do really avant-garde sing. I mean, you know what I mean? Like if you're really bad at it, then you can sort of make the badness purposeful. And again, like I don't know. I mean, I'm all for inventiveness if it works, but I think I do, maybe that the way in which I'm old fashioned is that I believe in the spell. I would like for someone
Yeah, yeah.
to cast a spell, and the spell can work in all sorts of interesting ways. But I think that's what it is that like a lot of, I mean, remember in Baltimore, we would go to often these weird bad plays and weird bad, like a lot of the weird bad stuff. It was really just bad, but the 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 myth was that it was experimental. Like that was sort of the thing that you could
Yeah.
claim.
There was definitely a point relatively early in our marriage where, like, for the sake of our continuing to stay married, I just started going to these plays alone.
Hmm.
They were people I
Hmm.
knew, or right. Yeah, I mean, I like a fair amount of avant-garde or experimental art, but what I think is pretty true is that it is, if if you are bad, then it is harder to hide your badness in conventional art. Like, if you're bad and you make conventional art, it's going to ring out for everyone to see.
Hmm.
Whereas if you make experimental boundary breaking avant-garde-ish art or even avant-garde flavored art, it can often be a little harder to pin down whether what you're seeing is subtly brilliant or just fragmented and hard to watch.
I just think like I often don't even know what it means. I also think that the funny thing is I actually think I have more tolerance in many ways for strange and inventive stuff than you do, interestingly enough. But I
In what medium?
I
Or
like
what?
like going like weird stuff in art museums, basically.
What? Really?
Ha, ha. I guess what I don't, I mean, I guess I don't, what I don't really care to go to would be, you know, people who have with minimal practice are kind of, you know, ad-libbing I don't know, like they've gathered in a warehouse and they're gonna do an improv version of Ghostbusters, which I feel like in their underwear, like that would be something that you could probably go see in Baltimore. It would be like, gather at the warehouse. We're gonna.
We effectively did go see that in Baltimore.
I mean, like
It was Jurassic
like,
Park. It wasn't Ghostbusters,
no,
but you know.
I wasn't going to name names, but I guess that's where, I mean, and I think it's fine. I think that if clearly people doing, they're having fun, and there's a lot to be said for having fun, because there's another, you know, very unhappy, self-serious version that would be even less pleasant. I'm all for people having fun, but I think I want the illusion. And this, I mean, we're getting off track. Like this show, aside from that fourth wall breaking element, they certainly created an effective, you know, sense of real tension, as if this is a married couple. And I just, you know, I think I wanted like somebody to go to the grocery store. I wanted someone to, like, there was a sense of us being sort of frozen in a single tense moment, and then the moment just continuing for hours and hours and hours, and like there wasn't enough of the stuff of life or the other emotional range of life, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I actually sort of liked of all of them, the first episode best, which is the one where you see they're being interviewed by a very earnest graduate student in gender studies who's doing some kind of project on marriages, and specifically on marriages where the man is the primary caregiver. And so they're interviewed by her, and they're sort of, you can tell they're kind of playing a couple different games where she's a little bit uncomfortable and would kind of rather not be there and has something going on with her phone, and he's very, very enthusiastic and a little bit pompous. He's doing too much of the explaining for both of them, but you can see she sort of would almost rather just let him do that. And then later you see them having a kind of a fun but then contentious dinner with friends, where the friends are in an open marriage and they're having this whole crisis. But it was what I sort of liked in a
More
way
of
was
those friends. The friends were a relief. Like the friends and their conflict. I wanted more of them. I wanted more of who's that? Corey Stoll.
Corey Stoll and the woman I had not seen before. But yeah, I mean, I thought they were good. I thought she was, you know, it was interesting. The friends where they were in an open marriage, and she had just had a boyfriend break up with her and wanted to be able to talk about this with her husband, who sort of would rather not. I had to feel little sympathy for him, though apparently, you know, he was also sort of a cad in his own way. But I mean, part of what I thought was quite engrossing about that scene was getting to see our main characters in some scenes where theirs was not the primary trauma. Like they were the sort of, they were supporting their friends, but they were not in a moment of total profound crisis. They then later have this conflict where they're like, she's pregnant and they're not sure what they want exactly. And they both decide to have a baby, but then she also decides but mostly she sort of decide to have an abortion instead. And there were both like a few different phases to that first episode, and there were other characters, and it just felt like a little more like there was a marriage happening. And that in a way, like what I was hoping for from both of them being called Scenes from a Marriage was a little bit of like the difficult I was interested to like see someone rise to the challenge of like telling the story of a marriage, which can be, I mean, the biggest challenge is that it's mundane. Like it's sort of things happen.
Mhm.
Like there's not a major, it's not a marriage plot because you've kind of
Yeah,
arrived.
go to the grocery store for God's
You
sake.
don't really
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
watch a
go.
movie. You don't want to watch a movie about people going to the
No,
grocery
no, I
store. You don't
don't.
want
I
that
don't.
movie.
I don't. No, I don't. But what you're saying about them being in the world, like they are not always the sun and the moon and the stars, and it's not even. I mean, I think affairs are interesting as far as turning a plot. I think that's fine, but it just felt like, ow, it just the level of attention that they gave themselves was self-indulgent. And I say that with full knowledge that we all give lots of attention to our own thoughts and feelings, and that's what people do and what characters often do. But it was like too much. Turn it off. Go
Yeah.
take your child. They kept talking about the child's dance. Go take the child to the dance class.
Yeah.
Go do something. Go. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was yeah.
There's a convention in like children's literature as well as in like, teen TV shows, movies where parents are always sort of inexplicably absent and like kids are able to
Yeah.
be really, unrealistically autonomous. And that sometimes is sort of metaphorical, but in this case, I almost felt the opposite impulse. Like, what are these parents who are just talking to each other all the time?
Yeah.
Even just like for
Yeah.
you and
Oh
I to
yeah.
set up this conversation takes some doing. It's
Yeah.
actually hard
Yeah.
for two married people to talk to each other when they have
Oh
kids.
yeah. 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 They're emoting. He's reading his like morning dream journals to her. It's just, I
That's
mean,
also
y'all
in the
have too
original.
much
She
time.
has a diary with her psychiatrist who
It's
like has,
too
because it's the
too.
groovy 70s. She's like, yeah, I slept with my psychiatrist a few times, but we didn't really hit it off. So
Oh
now we're
yeah.
just working together.
They used to do that. That was part of the cure. That was part of the cure in the olden days.
Good old days.
Yeah, yeah. I would just like for the listeners to know that this was not. It wasn't. This was not a Joanna pick. I wanted us to discuss Below Deck for the record.
Below deck.
For
Yeah.
the record, Below Deck. I mean, it's upstairs, downstairs drama. It's
It's a
it's
reality show about a boat.
yeah. It's finally it's fine. It's edited to its essence. So there
Mm-hmm.
is always action happening. There are, jerk holes of the 1% coming onto the yacht. There are love affairs. I mean, it's just people have some moments of dissecting relationships, but you're not going to linger on it too long because the Bravo
Mm-hmm.
viewers don't want that.
Well,
It's a
I don't.
different.
I'm not convinced the Bravo viewers don't want that because I've definitely watched
They,
recently an episode or two of Real Housewives and Vanderpump Rules with you, and there's
but
some
they
pretty
move
some
quickly.
serious
You're
navel
gonna
gazing.
no. You're gonna move quickly to a
You,
new conflict. I'll
to a
say
new
that
to a
you're not gonna.
new to a new pair of people closely
Yeah,
dissecting
keep
their
keep keep
their
it keep
narcissistic
it
conflicts.
moving. Keep it moving. That's the
Yeah,
trick.
yeah.
But yeah, this
This was my, I forced this on you. Uh, it's funny because I love Bergman and I actually quite like the actors in this adaptation, but all around I felt like this was not like there is a thing that is really challenging about marriage, and I would love to see somebody figure out a way to tell that story in a way that like
or even when people always talk about, and I think this is true, when people talk about the marriage as depicted in the television show Friday Night Lights, how there's something that feels kind of authentic and good and a little bit like complicated. It's not just a sort of one dimensional sort of good, but it's a good marriage. I mean that and again, this show is about lots of other characters and things, but the
as are most
coach and his
marriages.
wife. Yeah, exactly. But that's one of those where you're like, okay, this is interesting. This is yeah, I'd much rather watch Friday Night Lights, for the record. Great show, wonderful show. Truly, I mean that's not a controversial statement. I don't think. But yeah, what are there other interesting or good depictions of, I know there are because
there's a standing challenge Brian has had to meet, which is to find literary depictions of happy marriages, and for the most part, they tend to be marriages that are where the conflict is not native to the marriage. Like, Odysseus and Penelope, you could argue there's a happiness there, but it's mostly because they never, like, in order for a marriage to be part of a piece of literature, there tends to be conflict, but often I think that conflict is actually fairly one note. Like they're already miserable, and then you see them grind through it, or you see them lie to each other dramatically, or like, I don't know that I've seen a really accurate depiction of some of the more realistic challenges, which have to do with not being the center of your own story, because you're dealing with kids, you're dealing with other things, and like again, like attention that came in, I would say, like in the second episode of the original, where you see them mostly like talking to other people, doing their jobs, dealing with daily life, and feeling the sort of the tension of like not feeling totally fulfilled, but also being fairly comfortable and being like caring about the people you're with, but being sometimes bored. And like that's I don't know that I've seen like a good treatment of that in movies or in books. Exactly.
I don't know. I would much rather, I mean, I guess who wouldn't? The answer almost always is I would rather read Alice Munro, but so that's probably an unfair. But again, I realize as I say that it's not that they're necessarily happy marriages uniformly in her stories, but there is I do think it's fair to say that they're not all grindingly unhappy. Like there is happiness, there's hateship, courtship, friendship, whatever that title is. They're all of those. They're all of those things in a complicated way. And I guess in this, I just like I was like, did y'all ever like to hang out with one another? Was that what are the? I mean, clearly y'all at one point liked to get it on with one another.
And the moments throughout the series.
No, I mean, yeah, like you could come through your hatred to a place of dire passion, but
that did feel. I mean, there's something that did feel somewhat true about their storytelling, is that the way they told their backstory, he was Orthodox Jew who was sort of raised pretty, like he didn't touch a woman until he was in college, and she was dating a rock star, and so like both of them were sort of exotic to each other, and there was a little bit of distance and mystery, and so you can see maybe how they had the hots for each other, and they had this sort of this mystique, but they didn't necessarily know or understand or like each other all that much.
That continued to not like.
They continued not to know or like or understand each other. Fargo. I think the original Fargo, that's a happy marriage. That feels like a real marriage. For the little, it's not a big part of the movie, but it feels
well. And then maybe Brian's question is unfair, because if you find an authentically portrayed happy marriage, it is also going to be at times unhappy. I mean, so I think that it's right. I mean, the question is there something there? Is there some
the challenge of I think, I don't know that I've seen that many depictions of the actual challenge of being married, rather than the challenge of like really wanting to or trying to do something else while also being chained to this.
We've all got to go watch Friday Night Lights again. That's a really well. I mean,
maybe that's the answer.
I think that is the answer. I think that's the
always culmination of the Western storytelling tradition. Is Friday Night Lights. That's when we peaked as a civilization, as a culture.
It's a good show. It's a good show.
So we should talk at least a little bit. And you've got this new book coming out. Now You Know It All, and it's a collection of stories. You've got some. I don't know that you have any happy marriages, but you've got some marriages and almost marriages and post marriages, and relationships of different kinds in there. I was going to say some are pretty grisly.
I hope none make people suffer like the 7 hours of that show made me
7 hours.
suffer. Whatever, however long it was. Yeah, there are some relationships. I mean, I think obviously that moments of moments of conflict and tension are what are interesting. I mean, that's where the story often lies. I mean, it's a little bit like, I'm reading this George Saunders book, and he talks about sort of the short story writer's compression of time, where you're reading the story and it's like, and then for the next 6 years, he blah 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 blah. And it's like you fast forward through that time because um, that time is not relevant for your consideration. I think in a lot of these stories, it's like they're some of the happy time is not going to be the time that you're zooming in on is part of it. But I still hope that the tense or the unhappy does not have the complete and utter, I don't know what, self-seriousness, is self-regard of this stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, and your stories are they're too short and too much happens for them to suffer from, I think, the
Good.
flaws of this
Yeah.
series. You write, like, you have this odd. We talked about it some recently because you were doing a thing for Electric Lit, but you write not quite speculative fiction, not quite magical realism, not quite sci-fi, but something in that neighborhood.
I do I mean, I think I'm pretty squarely realist, but I enjoy tension and threat and spookiness. I mean, but I think they're pretty. I do think that the category that I made up, the uncanny, is a decent category for. But I don't think. I mean, certainly no one has ever mistaken it for sci-fi. I'll say that.
Not sci-fi, right? Yeah, no, I mean, fantasy or parable. Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe the distinction is that your stories always take place in a realistic world, but your characters often don't know that. Like, your characters often end up
Yeah.
having an experience of not being sure what kind of story they're in.
Maybe so, they're adjacent to a person who has. I mean, I would say a lot of the main characters are like me in that they have an appetite for mystery, but maybe not a capacity for it. And so they're attracted to people who maybe are a couple notches more credulous. And then they start to sort of teeter on their heels and then start to sort of wonder about their position within the realistic story constraints. So yeah, I think that maybe sounds right.
And that's, like, I think about as all these children's stories that have these doors or portals or secret train platforms to the unknown or to the other world. And I feel like, as a parent, like, your child is sort of that portal. Like, you're living in a
Mhm.
house with these people who like genuinely have a very different vision of the world that for them is very real. And
Yeah.
you don't, your relation to that is very uncertain, and particularly
Yeah.
surrounding, like, your favorite holiday of all, Halloween, as we are approaching.
Yeah. 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 I think that's right. I mean, funny, I should use children characters more to be that portal. Strangely, I don't tend to use them a lot, but I do think that's why in a good ghost story or a good whatever, often the first sighting is a child report. So you have that kind of dubious, uh, there's a dubious aspect to the first information or the first reportage of whatever has occurred.
Right, because it's in the voice of a child. Yeah, I think
Hmm.
you have used, maybe that there's a lag with you when you're, like, digesting your own experience of the world and then bringing it into fiction. Like, you're right, you don't have a lot of children who are the doorway into the unknown, but you do have a fair number there's maybe more in your first collection than in your second, but you have a fair number of like infants or fetuses or like zygotes that are, that are like
So
passing away.
many, so many, so many fetuses. Yeah, well, I mean, is it the fetus, or is it the is it the hormones? I mean, yeah, I mean, I think giving birth is the closest thing to an ayahuasca ceremony that I ever intend to do. So I think, yeah, is it the is it the what is driving that experience? Yeah, I take your point is well made though.
Yeah, I mean that is we obviously have quite different experiences of it, but I will say from my own recollection of both times, that is a true portal to another world. I mean that is
Yeah,
really
oh,
absolutely
definitely.
unreal.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean that I mean I really do, not that I've ever done an ayahuasca ceremony because I don't,
You
partly because I
really
don't
want to
like to
make sure that
vomit,
my
but
listeners know that you're not into ayahuasca. This is my wife,
yeah, no,
ayahuasca free
no.
wife, Joanna
No,
Pearson.
but I mean, but I do think that giving birth is got to be that. I mean, yeah, that's got to be something like that. Like you're you talk about a portal. You're in extremis.
Yeah, you
Like
feel
a yeah,
you're very sweaty. You feel sick to your stomach.
yeah.
Like
You're
when
having
can I get out of here?
visions.
There's a mysterious stranger in the room suddenly.
Yeah.
Well, do you, given that, so this is going to be coming out anticlimactically on the third, maybe depending on Apple, it could be coming out much later than that if they don't get their shit together.
Yeah.
But do you have any semi-seasonal story or movie, spooky story or movie recommendations, or other than just Below Deck and Friday Night Lights?
Oh gosh. And that's not even what I would have recommended had I been thinking about giving
Just before you
recommendations.
watch Scenes from a Marriage, watch those instead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or
There are
anything, I
some
mean, anything
really,
else you've discovered, or you,
I
because
think
you read,
I,
people may not
yeah,
realize,
no, I
like,
mean,
you
I
read
think
insanely fast. You read a whole lot of fiction.
yeah, I don't retain a lot, but I do read a lot. I think there are some very good, there's some very good creepy stories by Kelly Link has a couple creepy ones, some of which are available online. Maybe I'll find them for your show notes. Um, so Kelly Link, obviously Carmen Maria Machado, she is well known for that. I think, I mean, even that list I made for electric literature, you should, by the time this comes out, that list may have come out, my
Okay,
Uncanny
yeah,
list,
I'll link to it.
because
Yeah.
that has some really good collections that I think are in that kind of spooky nether space, we'll call it, between I mean, certainly it's not, I don't think it's horror. I don't think Shirley Jackson is horror, honestly. I think Shirley Jackson for the most part is operating in a space of more so the uncanny. I think that I'm thinking of names that I didn't include on that list of uncanny short story collections. I probably should have and didn't, because I think they get plenty of. They don't need me to recommend them, but I'll mention them. I think that Karen Russell and Lauren Groff, both of whom it could be argued that I like far more as short story writers than possibly I like them a lot more. Well, definitely Karen Russell I like more as a short story writer than a novelist, and probably that's true of Lauren Groff. They have some great, kind of uncanny, spooky, chilling little stories. And then yeah, the names on that list I think would be nice seasonal fare, if you will. The Turn of the Screw. Everybody should go back and reread The Turn of the Screw. That's
Yeah,
a great.
yeah, some spooky children in that one for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I think those are my racks.
the next time I get you on here, what I guess it's got to be your turn to pick what we talk about. Any thoughts on what kind of what should your beat be if you're a periodic guest? What's your Are you going to be the reality TV show beat? Because I may be discussing F Boy Island with
JP.
with the renowned novelist JP Gritton.
Yeah, I'll think about that. It might be reality TV. It might be that there are certainly some other HBO shows that are more my jam. Insecure, High Maintenance. Those are those I can feel real passionate about.
Sure,
Scenes from a Marriage is thumbs down from Joanna. The good acting in it, but I don't know.
Honestly, I think it was quite well done all around. I just think that it's I think weirdly enough, the source material was sort of poisoned. He should not have been making a movie about his own marriage or his own relationship. Like he didn't have whatever he needed to have, whatever perspective he needed. He didn't have it.
And we shouldn't give it any more time.
So well, given that this is ostensibly a poetry podcast, I would be remiss if I let you go without at least touching on your much mourned exit from the world of poetry.
Who's mourning that? Nobody is mourning that.
I was the featured poet for a the like winter spring issue of this magazine. That the whole reason I was the featured poet for it was that they wanted you to be the featured poet, and they slowly piece by piece negotiated themselves until finally I was the featured poet, but they got an interview with you and me at least, because really all they wanted was you, and I became their vehicle for getting a tiny dose of you.
I mean, I feel a little bit like, who was it? Was it Tom Sawyer who shows up to his own funeral? I feel like I would have to show up to my own poetry funeral to actually believe that people are really mourning.
So you're saying what you're saying is you faked your poetry death, but secretly you've been writing poetry all along with your friend.
No, not at all. No, I didn't. I don't think anybody is. No one's losing sleep over it. We'll put it that way.
So what? Why? Why did you? Why did you stop writing and like, to be clear, like, and reading and thinking or caring about or tolerating poetry at all? Were you like you really swore off? You're a poetry teetotaler. You got an MFA in poetry. You did a thesis in poetry as an undergrad at UNC. You wrote poetry your whole like conscious, adolescent adult life. Why did you swear it off?
I mean, my loyalties were to writing more so than poetry, and my loyalties were to pleasure and sound and feeling moved by something that was human and true and interesting and engaging. And I think there are some poets there are some great poems that meant a lot to me at one time, and I think there are still some very few very thoughtful poets working. But I guess for the most part, again, my primary loyalties were to literature over any particular genre. I mean, writing over any particular genre, and poetry lost me. It was like poetry was just like Jessica Chastain and I was Oscar Isaac, only I just ran out of the house within the first 30 minutes of the miniseries. Poetry, that doesn't really hold.
With whom did poetry really have an affair? Did poetry?
I don't know. Not me.
Slept with a hot Israeli guy, and that like.
Yeah, not me. Yeah, no. I did not find poetry an interesting or fertile place anymore. Really.
So both of your story collections, the titles are taken from poems.
That is true.
Is that you pouring one out on the grave, or is that you spiking the football?
That's me pouring one out on the grave.
Okay, all right. That seems, all right, a libation for the dead art form.
Pour a shot out.
Yeah. Well, thank you for appearing on this silly podcast that I that I
Thank you.
had to
Thank
I
you,
had to
Matthew Buckley
put it
Smith.
together in secret because it was such a preposterous idea. So I didn't let you know about it until it was a fait accompli.
Good work. Longtime listener, first time caller, signing off.
That was my conversation with Joanna Pearson. Again, her most recent book is Now You Know It All. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. You can find her online at joannapearson.com and, intermittently some of the social media sites, though not a whole lot. Thank you for listening. You can reach me, as always, at sleerickets@gmail.com. And with any luck, I will be speaking to you again very soon. Until then.